Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR, HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show, a place of inspiration, education, and hope for a healthier, more compassionate, and sustainable world. Those of you who are regular listeners already know how deeply committed I am to doing what I can to bring together the highest level of educational and inspirational guests and content to showcase for you as possible. The truth is that we are all on this journey together, and the more we can work together as a community, the better. To make a donation to support the continuance of this program, go to the TheresaNicassio.com website, which is Theresa with an H, N like Nancy, one C, and two S's, so it's TheresaNicassio.com website, and click on the donate button that you'll find at the bottom of the page. If you have products or services you would like to share with my large and growing audience as a sponsor or advertiser, you can click the same button or message me directly. My email address also is Theresa at TheresaNicassio.com. Not particularly unique, but there you go. Be sure to join us next week when we'll have registered dietitian Lane Lieberman with us, talking about her own journey with dangerously high cholesterol when she was like 9 years old, ultra high cholesterol, and her discoveries about the gifts of the Mediterranean diet. And in 2 weeks, we'll have a mother and daughter on the show. That's going to be a really moving show, talking about how autism touched and transformed their lives. So the daughter was diagnosed at age 3 with severe autism, and they've had an amazing transformative life. So you're going to want to enjoy that. If you have questions for any of my upcoming guests, be sure to send them to me through my TheresaNicassio.com website. You'll see a little button right near the end of all the tabs that says Ask Theresa. Or you can email me again directly at Theresa at TheresaNicassio.com, or use the contact page on my website. That's fine as well. Many of you have been using one or all of these methods, so that's great. And again, my website is TheresaNicassio.com, and the email is Theresa at TheresaNicassio.com. I just want to give a little note of apology. I've been updating my website, so if you want to check that out and give me feedback or ideas of that you would like to just share your thoughts about, that would be awesome. But in the process of updating, yesterday the system was pretty much down, so I want to apologize to any of you who were trying to access material yesterday, because I'm not the most computer savvy person and I did something wrong. But anyway, it's back up and running full force, and I hope you enjoy this growing and exciting wellness hub that I'm creating for free online self-help resources. Anyway, let me know if you've got thoughts. Anyway, so we're going to shift now to today's guest, and I'd like to start, before I actually introduce the next guest, whose name is Dr. Barbara Jaffe. You can find her you go to the profile page at TheresaNicassio.com. You can see her page and learn a lot more about her, which I will be sharing some of about her. But I thought for today, I'm really excited to not just share with you Barbara and the message that she has, but also to open up your world to her essence, which I found very moving in her book. She wrote a book that's just come out called When Will I Be Good Enough? A Replacement Child's Journey to Healing. And it's so poetic, and it's so descriptive in a lot of ways that I thought I would start with a little excerpt from that, because it'll give you an entry into her world before she starts talking about her world. So here we go. This is page 14 to 15. As a child, I was told that 6 people stayed in bed. I intuitively knew then that my mother was ill. yet I could not hear her cough. I could not see her runny nose, nor was she doubled over with a stomach ache. No, her ills were deep within, which no amount of supine positioning could restore. Over the years, I experienced my mother's withdrawal, always teetering on the edge of depression and exhaustion, yet still able to get through her daily life as if she were a leaf that falls from a tree, knowing its destination is the ground below, but too fragile to land on target, always floating a little off the mark. Often her bedroom door was closed, shut tightly like her heart, as if to seal herself from the pain that another child's love and possible loss could bring. For me, her daily long rests forever stamped within me the decision for my own life to never lie in bed unless I literally could not step out of one. This was my fate then, to dance as fast as I could without music, to keep busy when exhaustion took over, to will myself fine when at times I was close to collapsing. Until today, I have never stayed in bed as long as I could walk. And when I couldn't walk, I found a sofa, anything but a bed. So, with that, I'd like to now do a little intro to this amazing woman, Dr. Barbara Jaffe. She's a tenured professor of English at El Camino College in Southern California, having earned degrees in linguistics and education from UCLA. A compassionate and empowering educator through and through, Barbara is committed to helping others discover their own unique voices. Esteemed by her colleagues, Barbara has received the Outstanding Woman of the Year award and the Distinguished Teacher of the Year award at her college. Barbara is entranced by the real-life experience of living and relishes in the meaningful reflections that beauty and personal challenges offer. Today, Barbara's going to be with us sharing some of her own personal stories. It has been a difficult, I like to think of it as a Humpty Dumpty-esque journey of learning how to put herself back together after growing up in a very difficult situation so that she could live a full and honorable life, honoring her own unique worth and personhood. Barbara decided to share her story in her memoir, When Will I Be Good Enough? And that's where I took the excerpt from. She's with us today as well to help others have hope of healing from the scars of being raised by parents who were unable to offer them the safe and nurturing emotional environment that children so desperately need in order to thrive. Whether the reasons for the parent's lack of ability to parent are because of grief, depression, substance abuse, or any other countless reasons, the impact on the child is undeniable. However, as Barbara will talk about today with us, it is possible to reclaim your sense of wholeness and be able to live a beautiful life, even if you have been raised in such a family. And I just want to add that when we scheduled this, I didn't realize, I don't think either of us realized, that it was Mother's Day week, and building up to Mother's Day. And as I was mentioning to Barbara just today, Mother's Day, this time of year, is a very poignant time, particularly for anyone who has longed to be a mother and has not been able to, or has been a mother and lost their child, or who is a person who has lost their mother or never had a mother that really was able to meet their needs. So this is perfect timing. And Barbara, I just want to thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Theresa, and your voice is so beautiful. I loved listening to my words that you read in your voice.
Oh, nice. It's interesting, isn't it, when you have your own voice and your own words, and then hearing the expression through another's voice, isn't it?
Yes, it was one of the first times that happened to me, and I so appreciate it. What a gift.
Yeah, nice. Well, Barbara, I always like to start with people's story because that's relevant. And in your case, it's really central to today's interview. We'll be going many directions with that. But I wonder if you can. I intentionally didn't give details about what your story was. I wanted it to come from your. I wanted you to be able to share that. In terms of your introduction. So can you share with the listeners today a little bit about your life journey, and that really started before you were even conceived?
Yes, absolutely. So my parents had two boys, my older brother Stephen and then Jeffrey. And when Jeffrey was about 2 years old, he contracted meningitis, and within 6 weeks he died. So my parents really had anticipated completing their family after Jeffrey was born. But when he died, suddenly a void was there within the family, and they were encouraged to have another child and to move on. So I was born to replace Jeffrey. Actually, I was called the replacement child, not actually use those words, but my mother would remind me as I was growing up that if Jeffrey had lived, I wouldn't have been born. They only wanted 2 children. So I didn't necessarily see myself as a replacement child, but there were many qualities that I had that I cultivated within my family growing up that in reflection were definitely qualities of a replacement child. Today there's been some research, little research, and there's actually something called the replacement child syndrome, in which some of those qualities are very similar to what I have. And I wrote my story as a way in which to, as you said, the Humpty Dumpty experience where I saw pieces of myself that were askew, specifically self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. And while I feel that I had a very good childhood overall, and I know that I was loved as best as I could, it was just very hard in many areas of my life, and I realized that it didn't seem that other people were having such a hard journey. As I said, my mother loved me as best as she could, but she never really recovered from my brother's passing. Not that a parent can, but they were never able to fully deal with the loss in terms of talking it through. In fact, she would tell me that when she was so distraught after it happened and she was in bed hysterical, her doctor paid her a house call and slapped her across the face and said, "Get over it, move on, and have another child." And she would say, almost sarcastically to me, that was my therapy. My father dealt with it differently. He worked a lot and he spent a lot of time at work, but his love was unconditional, and I always felt that.
Mm-hmm. So he seemed to, we all deal with grief differently, and it's an interesting process. But as you're speaking, and as I was reading the book, so folks, this is a book you're going to want to get because it's one that you enter into Barbara's world, and as you can hear her articulateness and her clarity and her memories that she so vividly recreates with her language. Again, as an English teacher, as a language teacher, is something that she even talks about that. She became very astutely aware of language, and it comes through in her kind of poetic expression. But it captures. You were able to capture, Barbara, the essence better than any other person I have about this sense of not just your loss and your experience and how you were interpreting the world from that very innocent, childlike perspective, but also a very deep compassion for your parents, for your mom in particular, even though she was unable to meet your needs. How were you able to keep that, first of all, have your brain work well enough that you're able to even remember these things, but also how are you able to metabolize these experiences in such a way that you're able to have so much compassion and caring and ultimately gratitude in your life?
Yes, I think that I've never really seen myself as a victim, and one of the lessons that my mother taught me early on was that we all walk with something in our lives, and that was very powerful for me. And I didn't necessarily see myself as someone different early on than anyone else. I actually thought that a lot of mothers spent time in bed or spent their days in bed, and it wasn't until I was able to leave home and maybe go away to college that I saw that it didn't have to be as hard as it was. And I think because I am generally pretty easygoing and want to make people happy, I'm a people pleaser, it became my life's mission to make my mother happy. And when she was happy, I was happy. And while that's a very big responsibility for any child, nor should it be their responsibility, I just felt that was one of my life's roles that really carried me through. But as a parent myself, in retrospect, we all do the best we can with the tools we have. And I know that that's what my mother did, and I know that she loved me. And, life was very hard for her, and I do have a tremendous amount of compassion for her.
Yeah. Well, and having been a parent and now a grandparent, you know that parenting itself, in the best of times, is not always easy. And so this idea of the pain and, the suffering and of loss and tragic loss, that, how that can really be jarring and trigger some very severe psychological, emotional backlash.
Yes. And I was always yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was always very introspective as a child and had questions and wanted to know about feelings and wanted to talk about feelings. And I also learned that was not something that my mother was comfortable with. So I sought outside the home to find answers to so many of my questions. And as a writer, even as a young girl, I would spend my days writing in my journals.
Well, it's interesting you should mention that about going to other people. That I think we're not too far apart in age. Actually, we're pretty similar. And in like the 1980s, in the 1980s especially, a lot of research started coming out around resilience, the resilient child. And they were looking at what are the factors that someone can go through really tough times like you did, and child A doesn't do so well, and child B does, is able to do well and still be pretty high functioning. And the single most important factor that they found that seemed to be a universal was a quality of resourcefulness, and in particular resourcefulness of people who can meet the child's needs. So they would find other families as new role models and new kind of parent type of resources. And it sounds like that's what you did.
That's exactly what I did. And in retrospect, I have had a lot of very close women friends and a lot of older women friends. And it would be very clear to me to see that in many ways I've sought for that mother-daughter relationship in ways that I needed so much.
Well, it's one thing I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about, because something that, as you're listening, folks, it may be that you're not a replacement child, or I think a lot of people actually know people who are replacement children or who have had a replacement child and don't even realize it. It's not one of those things that people necessarily advertise. But even if you don't, or that doesn't really resonate, there's many other relevant experiences that really resonate with this replacement child syndrome. Can you talk a little bit about some of those that you mentioned to me before as well?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, first of all, we grew up in families where siblings are sometimes compared, although we shouldn't do that. We sometimes find our roles where someone could be the artistic one and someone is the sports-minded, et cetera, et cetera. So we grew up in families sometimes where we might feel less than in some areas, adopted families, blended families, half families. And I think that for me was such an aha moment when I would have various people tell me after they've read the book, I can so relate. I am not a replacement child, but I have had areas of my life where I felt maybe less than or not good enough in an area that really spoke to me, and I was very surprised. But that's been a universal theme that a lot of readers have said that even though I'm not a replacement child, I can really connect to that feeling of maybe issues of self-confidence, self-worth, self-esteem at various times of my life.
And I think that there's that experience from the inside of, and we'll get more into talking about attachment issues and that, and how there was kind of a troubled attachment with your mom, but also I think that the adoption piece is, and those of you, many of you know that my partner is adoptive as well as one of our daughters, and that was by choice, excuse me, that we adopted. But there's many different reasons why we adopt or we can adopt, and for some people, it can actually come out of a different sort of grief. Like for my husband, we actually had wanted to, if we could, have one child by birth and adopt another child, and that's what we did. But for many people, it's not necessarily a choice. It's more for them it can feel like a default that they really want to have a child, and they go through all kinds of, and they have fertility challenges. And we do have, actually, Dr. Lauren Brown's going to be on June 5th, actually, talking about food and fertility and about those things. But the poignancy of wanting to have a child and then things not working out that way can set you up for a disappointment or grieving and the child never quite measuring up. But we'll get more into that after. But we actually need to go for a break already. How does this happen? So after the break, Barbara's going to be back with us, sharing more about some of her experiences as a replacement child and just her struggles around self-esteem. And in particular, I'm hoping we can talk a bit about your struggles around anorexia, some disordered eating, and body image. So join us. Be right back right after the break.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit yumfoodforliving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
For all your live or pre-recorded webcasting needs, come to earthchannel.com. Get your web-based message out to a select group or the whole world. It's easy. A pioneer in webcasting, earthchannel.com provides the best products and services to big corporations and government users. And now this same technology is available to you. They have the best Earthcast encoders, servers, and products to meet your technical needs. But wait, don't want to mess with technical stress? No problem. They'll do it for you. EarthChannel.com is your answer. You can use webcasting for lots of things like advertising, marketing, customer support, training, and don't forget web radio and TV. In fact, you're listening to a live Earthcast right now. So come to EarthChannel.com. Actualize your audio or video webcasting needs today. You can't beat the friendly service or the price. Call earthchannel.com at 1-800-849-8978. That's 1-800-849-8978.
Yumfoodforliving.com is the place to get easy, allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit yumfoodforliving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of yum. Don't wait. Visit yumfoodforliving.com. Yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
If you like to spend your television viewing time learning about some of the things that you may have missed in history class, or if history was your favorite subject, then you should check out the link to the History Channel on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page. Order DVD sets by series or by subject matter right from our homepage while you still enjoy your favorite HealthyLife.net show.
You're listening to HealthyLife.net, the radio network that brings positive talk with positive change to make your world a little better.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. For those of you who are just joining us, we've been talking with author and educator Dr. Barbara Jaffe about her experiences growing up in a grief-stricken family. Before the break, Barbara, you were talking about, we started talking about how there's different variations on of not feeling like you're enough, whether it's because you're adopted or you're not as good as, you've been compared to your other siblings. And in your case, that you were born to replace, your 2-year-old brother, who you never could replace, and your mom never was able to fully recover from her grief from that experience. And I thought I would just mention, just reiterate what you said about how people who maybe have lost a child or have adopted out of necessity, not because that was their first choice, that it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't get over it and can't be very loving parents. It sounds like your father was able to get over it and do so. And I was talking with my daughter, who's adopted, my 15-year-old, about today's show, and she had some questions, and we're just talking about how, if you feel like you're a victim and you make a choice out of victimhood, it's a very different process than making a choice because it's what you really want to do, like we did to adopt her. But anyway, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about your coping, and because it was really hard, because you longed so much to be loved and accepted, and your mom could sometimes be quite chilly, and not that she was trying to be, but it was just so hard for her to fully embrace you in her life and in her eyes and in her heart. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and how your relationship with food and your body evolved in response to some of this.
Yes, as I had mentioned before, I wanted to make her happy. And it was early on, probably when I was around 10, when she, told me that she felt I was getting chubby. And I was. I loved food, and I ate a lot. And she told me that I should watch it, which, as the years unfolded, became a code word for you're gaining weight. And I was very sensitive to that, and also vain enough that I wanted to look good, look a certain way. I was growing up at the time of Twiggy and the stick-thin models.
Oh,
and so
right, of course.
Yes. So I did lose a few pounds, and she was happy. People commented, and I felt so much better about myself. And I have that part of my personality that is a little bit of an extremist, and I could carry it to the extreme, which is what I did. Ultimately, having an eating disorder, anorexia. At the time, the idea of the eating disorder was not as well known as it is now, where there are support groups and really dealing with issues of why someone has eating disorders, the psychological components. For me, I know it was I felt so out of control in my own life in terms of my mother being in control that food was one way in which I could be the top dog when it came to what I could eat and what I couldn't, and that's exactly what I did. And, of course, my mother was so worried about me, my health, and my period stopped for a year and a half. I fainted. I really had a difficult time with that, and then I felt doubly guilty that I was making her feel so upset. So talk about a catch-22 situation. And that became part of our dance throughout our relationship, to the point where she would tell me to eat, and then when times of extreme stress within my life was the times when I would stop eating.
Yeah, so it went from her, saying watch it, she was concerned you were getting fat, too chubby, whatever, and it made you feel self-conscious about your size then, and then you lost a lot of weight, and then she was worried about you then, and yet it did give you a dance. It gave you something to engage around and even be reactive around. There was a piece of a little excerpt in the book when you folks read it. Again, it's called "When Will I Be Enough?" When will I be good enough? And you can get the link is right on her on my profile where her web pages and all that. You could just do a link and get the book there. But there was a really poignant thing where it seemed like there was when you were even younger, there was another option where you were able to feel connected with your mom, not just through the food, but when she would wash and dry your hair, and you felt there was this tender, loving connection that you had until you were, I think, about 8 or 9 or something.
Yes, that day I would put my head down on her lap, and she would towel dry my hair.
Yeah, and you didn't get a lot of TLC from her, and that was one of the few times. And you were how old when that stopped? Was it 9?
Probably about 8 or 9, yes.
Yeah. And then your disordered eating, you said you were around 10 when she told you you were chubby. Was that the same time the doctor said that you could be like a linebacker?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. I actually went to the pediatrician, which always the worst fear was getting on that scale. And he actually told her that I could be a football player because of my broad shoulders and big hips. And he also said that I would not have any problem having children. I mean, I was appalled. It was probably just right before puberty, maybe 11, that he said those things. And I was just so embarrassed.
Yeah, and the power of language. I think that's a message I'm really hoping that people hear. You folks are listening. The words that we say can be branded on our hearts, on our souls, and that was the impetus that started the cycle around the anorexia, the starvation.
Yes, and I still have these issues today, not anorexia, but definitely I have issues around food and body image.
Mm-hmm. Well, as women in our culture, first of all, food is one of the first ways that we show that we love each other or we're loved, and our relationship with that, and then our cultural messages around women and our bodies are pretty not optimal in our culture, and so that challenge of our having peace about our bodies, and then as our bodies change and hormones, and whether it's puberty or pregnancy or menopause, all these things change everything, and it's a moving target, isn't it?
It really is. It's so complicated, and I wish that I could reel the tape back to those early days and make different choices. But I think so much too comes from the idea of communication. When you said that you were talking to your daughter, your adopted daughter, and about today's program, we didn't have any of that communication, and I think that would go such a long way to be able to talk about these issues. Why did I feel the need to starve myself? Just to be able to talk, but we just never did. Her doctor that she took me to virtually said that I was killing my mother by doing what I was doing, again, with the guilt, when what I really needed was help.
Exactly, and just to have some place to talk about the feelings. And the other thing that just really got me was the Oreo therapy that your parents did. It's like, what?
Oh, my goodness. Every
Oreo
night.
therapy, folks. You heard me right.
Every night, about 8 or 9 Oreo cookies on a plate with a glass of milk, and I was forced to eat them and drink the milk and then stand on the scale. Needless to say, I do not eat Oreo cookies anymore.
Yeah, but what a trigger, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And, again, your parents were doing the best they could. They were feeling desperate to put weight on you, and they thought they could
exactly
crap food, that they could do it. But the other part that was moving was how you did it, because you so wanted to please your mom. You so wanted to please your parents. Not that you wanted to eat those cool Oreos. It was like torture, but that you did it because of that, and because you were working so hard to starve yourself. Yeah.
Yes, the guilt overpowered even my ability to starve myself in wanting to make my mother happy. That is true.
Yes. So we're going to have to go to another break, but I'm just going to mention again, for any of you who are listening, and especially if you know anybody or you yourself have struggled around food, and particularly anorexia, a lot of times people say, how is it that someone can starve themselves? They just don't get it. I've never seen any book that better articulates the inner journey from that child perspective about it. So this is a must-read for anyone in the world or who works in the area of disordered eating. But again, we're going to go for a break, but we're going to be turning it around a bit, because after the break, Barbara's going to share with us some of her most treasured gems that helped her heal from the effects of her difficult childhood and the disordered eating. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
What does HealthyLife.net and Amazon.com have in common? Well, they're both available on the Internet. They both give great value. But most important, most of our positive program hosts and guests are accomplished authors, and their books are available from, you got it, Amazon.com. Now, it even gets better than that, because when you're listening on air to a HealthyLife.net host or guest, you can go directly to Amazon.com and you can order your book while you're still listening to your favorite HealthyLife.net program. So when you hear an author you like, go to the homepage of HealthyLife.net and click on Amazon.com.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
YumFoodForLiving.com is the place to get easy, allergy-free recipes, all free of sugar, gluten, and dairy. But that's not all you'll get when you visit YumFoodForLiving.com. You'll get resources for all kinds of things like wellness articles, videos, podcasts, a blog, all to help you create easy, healthy living. There's even a 50-page downloadable book introducing you to the philosophy of Yum. Don't wait. Visit YumFoodForLiving.com. YumFoodForLiving.com. That's YumFoodForLiving.com.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Welcome back to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show, where we explore ways we can support each other and work together to help make the world a kinder and healthier place. We have with us today Dr. Barbara Jaffe, the author of the newly released book called When Will I Be Good Enough? Before the break, Barbara, you were talking about many of the challenges you faced while growing up, feeling you were never good enough. And can we start with talking a little bit about what are some of the things that helped you turn your life around? I know you have a whole chapter on those things. If we can touch on a few of them, that would be great.
Sure. Well, as I said, I was searching for answers. I spent a lot of time reading metaphysical literature. I sought therapy, encounter groups, meditation, individual workshops. So I have been on a quest for most of my life, and I've written my thoughts down throughout my life. And I came to realize that being good enough is just fine. I did not need to be perfect, and that was one of my issues, where the perfectionism in everything, being the best cook I could be, making everything from scratch, trying to be the best mother and doing everything for my children, to the point where I began to disappear as a person, as a wife, as a daughter. And again, as that part that you read in the beginning, dancing as fast as I could, I pretty much have seen myself like the brooms in Fantasia that just keep multiplying. And I realized that I needed to be gentle with myself. I needed to be the friend that I am to other people in my life, and allowing myself to just kind of, okay, I don't have to be perfect. And another aha realization for me, which might seem obvious to some, was that I could focus on myself and give myself the things that I needed without waiting for someone to give them to me. Or I do not expect anymore for someone to know what I'm thinking. I used to say, well, I've been married to my husband forever. He should know exactly what I need and what I'm thinking. And once I began to realize that no one does that, I need to provide that for myself. The idea that expectations are really planned disappointments, that I can have expectations of myself, but for other people, no, in that way.
Yes, I love that quote, actually. Expectations, what did you say? Expectations
are planned disappointments.
Yes, and that's one message that I used to tell people, that expectations set us up to be hurt, wounded, feel like a victim. And I'm so glad you, Brett, mentioned that, as well as the importance of naming your needs and naming it, and not wishing and hoping, particularly in relationships, that shouldn't our partner know that we want that? Isn't that a normal thing? And letting go of that and just taking personal responsibility for what your needs are, what your longings are, and doing that. Excellent.
And these are just
tips?
Very short little shifts, changes and shifts, but it made all the difference for me.
And it applies even to parenthood too. Like what you're, when we have expectations of our kids, and you know what that's like living in a land where there's expectations that actually never can be met. But that didn't make you feel very good as a child, and you didn't want to do that for your children either.
Exactly.
Any other ways that you feel that your experiences, that some of the difficult experiences, informed you? Well, first created challenges, perhaps, but also informed you as a parent to do things differently.
Yes, I realized that my mother took over the entire energy in the room, and I did not want that for myself as a mother. Sadly, though, I went the other extreme and while we do put our children first, especially when they're younger, I continued to do that as a mother who had no needs at all, which was not giving them a realistic picture of their mother. And so, of course, I don't believe in regrets because I think those are wasted emotions, but it was a learning experience for me that it's important for our children to see their parents as humans, right? And that we're not perfect, and we do have needs. And so that was something that I've been working on. It's a little late because my children are grown, but it's never too late to be able to tell them some of the things that I need. So one of my realizations is that we can rewrite our life scripts that do not serve us anymore. And that has been a glorious realization over the years.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What led you to write the book? What are you hoping the readers will gain from reading your book?
Well, I think first and foremost, I wrote the book for myself. I needed to write my own story, and I liken it to really taking myself apart, examining the pieces, and putting them back together in this glorious tapestry. And in doing that, I also felt the need to share my story with others. And I remember telling someone, well, other people have had other struggles that would be much more intense than mine. And they said, yes, but they're not all writers. And that really gave me the understanding that I could share my story and people could take fragments of it that related to them and really grow too. I felt that it was part of my life's mission to share my story to help other people. And it has been very similar to that they've taken that journey with me and benefited by it.
It's so nice. Well, and of course, you're writing. You teach. You got your doctorate, and you teach people how to write their nonfiction, real life stories. This is so it's all prepared you in a way, because this is your first book, isn't it?
This is my first nonfiction book. I've written academically, but this is my first nonfiction book. And you're right. I teach my students to help them find their writers' voices, and generally people who aren't, comfortable with writing, they'll say, I have nothing to write about. And Flannery O'Connor said, if anybody has survived childhood, they have enough information to write a lifetime on. And I remind my students that. And that's where we begin. So and that's where I began.
So true. Yeah. Well, I like to say that to live, anybody who's alive is by default and by definition a hero. That's what we talk about, everyday heroes. Every one of us is a hero, just because merely being alive is a heroic act. And then the specific flavor of it, whether it's vanilla, chocolate, raspberry, but it's a different story, and it's really beautiful that you were able to embrace it and accept. I think briefly, if you could talk a little bit about acceptance and gratitude, that the role that's played in your life. That would be
yes. I feel very grateful for the life that I've had, and to reinforce that, I write a gratitude list twice a day. I write it in the morning, and I send it off to my niece, and I write it in the afternoon and send it off to a mentee of mine, and we exchange our lists. And it allows me to see the world so clearly in that sometimes the list can be the first sip of coffee in the morning. It doesn't have to be, a global issue, but it can be. But it's the very little things that we can pay attention to, like the first rose. Those are the kinds of things that I feel so grateful for, that we can all feel very grateful for.
Wonderful. Well, we need to take one more break. We have a last segment. We've got the Because You Asked coming up, and I've asked Barbara to join us because I think the question that came in is one that Barbara's perspective will be really valuable for. So don't go away. We'll be right back with Because You Asked.
Being inspired by a speaker while learning everyday positive information that you can use to help your life is exactly what Dr. Theresa Nicassio does when she speaks in front of your group. From healthcare professionals to special needs parenting and everything in between, Dr. Theresa Nicassio can customize topics for your group on everything from health to psychology. To book Dr. Theresa Nicassio as a speaker for your group, visit yumfoodforliving.com or call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463.
If you're like the 8 out of 10 women that say finding jeans that fit is a problem, well, your problem is solved. Lee Jeans has done extensive research, and they have jeans that fit. There's even an online Lee Fit Finder so you can find the right fit for you. Imagine jeans that instantly slim you with a custom fit and no gap waistband. And guys, kids, Lee has jeans for you too. Click through to Lee's Jeans on the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and get what fits.
When you have a food allergy or dietary limitation, Dr. Theresa Nicassio knows it's hard to give up the foods you love, so she decided to put on her chef hat and give you affordable, personalized culinary consultations that will light up your taste buds. You'll explore substitute ingredients so you can enjoy your favorite foods again. She'll even help you make food preparation easy and guide you on your path to healthy living. And to get started, all you have to do is call 604-445-6463. That's 604-445-6463. There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show, where we celebrate life, love, and kindness, while also acknowledging the real challenges, as we were just talking about, that are a natural part of living, and answer questions that matter to you. So this is the part of the show where we can actually address your questions directly that you send in. And there was a question that came in, Barbara, that, it's not exactly your topic, but I thought that it would be a really wonderful I thought that your perspective and wisdom would be relevant. And so here's the question, Dr. Nicassio. What do you think about the law of attraction? I've had a lot of bad things happen in my life. Do you think that I made them happen? My girlfriend thinks that I am negative and that I made these bad things happen because of my attitude. But I think that the way I think about things is because of what has happened in my life. What do you think?
Interesting question.
Do you know what the law of attraction is?
Yes, I have done a lot of reading on that and find it very fascinating. And I do think that there is an element of us that attracts, but I like to think of it in a positive way, that when we are looking for positive things or our learning experiences, even when we have a negative experience, I always say to myself, what can I learn from that to help me grow as a person? So I wouldn't like to think that your listener sees herself as someone who's constantly having bad things or negative things happen because she's bringing it on herself, but perhaps she just needs a little paradigm shift, a little perspective shift to be able to look for the beauty and the positive and the lessons when she is having a challenge in her life. That's how I really like to look at it, because I think we can all rewrite our scripts and have positive outlooks on something even if we've had a negative experience. That's how I like to look at that.
Well, I knew you'd have a great take on this. I've got some thoughts, too, around this. For those of you who are listening who haven't heard about what the law of attraction is, it's basically, it's an idea that became quite popularized. It was a movie called The Secret that came out several years ago. That the idea is that what we think about is what we create in our lives. And like you, Barbara, I think that there's a really positive side to it. There's actually several really positive sides to the concept of the law of attraction, where we could talk a whole show just about this, but that, if we can't envision something, if we can't imagine something different in our lives, then it's virtually impossible for us to create anything different. So, for example, if we've only lived in a life perhaps where there's been domestic violence and where partners beat each other or whatever, it's hard to imagine ever being in a relationship where that wouldn't be part of it, or even just yelling at each other or whatever it is. And so we can get in that, or if we're raised in poverty, it's hard to imagine ever being in a life where we might have more abundance and gifts. And so that's one of, I think, the positive sides. And I think the positive sides that you're talking about is that everything that happens, if we can be curious and creative enough, we can explore where the gifts might be in the opportunities. Where I've seen actually, and I've had to work with a lot of people who have gone on the dark side of the law of attraction, and that is where they believe that bad things that happened to them were actually their fault, that they manifested them. So, maybe they were in relationships and they were sexually violated in a relationship, or they had lost things financially, or they're just having a really hard time, and they think that it's because of how they're thinking that they've created it. I'm not going to say that there's any hard and fast black and white around this, but it is a really slippery slope because we don't necessarily create everything that happens in our lives. I just want to put that out there. I read this one really great article once that says if something can't pass the Holocaust test, and there was another one too, but the Holocaust test, then it's not true. So it's impossible that every person who was a Holocaust victim manifested that and created that, because there can be other factors involved. So I just really think that's an important piece. Do you have anything to add about that? In your situation?
I did, especially since you had mentioned about the Holocaust, because I teach the Holocaust in my classes. And one of the things I do is I use Viktor Frankl's theory of logotherapy, and the idea that when we have meaning in our lives, we can survive anything. And there are various ways in which we can find meaning. For me, of course, it's been my family and my writing and a beautiful career that I've nurtured and put myself into. But he even says that we can find meaning in suffering. He makes it very clear that we do not have to suffer to find meaning, but we can find meaning in suffering. So when we do have a difficult situation in our lives, we need to find the meaning in that so we can, because it is all about our perspective. If we cannot change what's happening to us, then we need to change the way in which we look at the situation. And I think that's right. That's the positive part of when we're thinking about the law of attraction, and not to blame us. We did not cause necessarily our cancer or some of these horrible things.
Yes, and you didn't cause yourself being born in a home where there was such grief and loss and difficulties. It's interesting. Viktor Frankl's one of my faves. He really touched my life, and I think I mentioned in the very first show how since I was like in grade 2, I was obsessed by reading stories of people who where the human spirit transcended. It was a lot of the Black American experience. I was, founder and abuse, and I was reading Holocaust survivor books from the time I was in grade 2. I was sort of a strange child.
We share a lot of similarities, Theresa.
I think we do. So you guys, speaking of the similarities, something that Barbara and I were kind of chuckling about before, because I invite guests to send in recommended books, books that they think are, have touched their lives or meaningful. And Barbara's list came in, and I'm thinking, oh my God, okay, yes, I've read that one, and some of the most special books. So if you want a great reading list, as we're getting ready for a summer reading list, if you go to her profile page on the TheresaNicassio.com website, you'll see a great list of books that she, and many of which I also really have found to have touched my life. Siddhartha was another one that stands out. The Alchemist, really, yes. Just so many great books. That's, you can just go there, and I've made it easy where you can just hyperlink and get the books there if you want, or you may even have them on your bookshelf. Gosh, I am so happy you came. Barbara, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I'm honored to be part of your show.
Well, it's a privilege is all ours. Everybody who's here as a listener and other guests, we are co-creating a energy to move forward. So, guys, it's time for wrap up again. Thank you all for joining us for today's program, and enjoyed today's show. Again, as a reminder, you can send in your questions. I love your questions about, in this case, you can send in something about, if you have any questions about the Mediterranean diet, for Lane Lieberman. She's a registered dietitian. He'll be here next week. Or any questions you might have about living with autism. We have, the following week's show is, we're going to have an amazing mother-daughter guest come on talking about their experiences with that, as well as questions for any of the other upcoming guests, whether it's about fertility with Dr. Brown or anyone. Anyway, so you can send those in, and an easy way is if you just click the Ask Theresa button on the website, TheresaNicassio.com, or you can email me, but just keep sending in your great questions. So I'm Theresa, and this has been the Dr. Theresa Nicassio Show. Until next time, have a great week.
There's a book that makes it so easy to embrace a healthy, gluten-free lifestyle, even kids will like it. Filled with heartwarming stories, food as medicine health tips, easy allergy-free recipes, and creative culinary inventions, the award-winning book Yum by Dr. Theresa Nicassio is your source for all of this and more. So make gluten-free living easy, tasty, and fun. Get Yum, plant-based recipes for a gluten-free diet at Amazon.com. Or visit yumfoodforliving.com. That's yumfoodforliving.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.